you come to be employed with?
Well, several locations in the mid-'90s. I had some cover positions here in Las Vegas, which made me look like a good old-fashioned Joe. In fact, I had some police experience at the late '80s. You're probably centering your question around work for the government. In 1986, I was approached while working as an undergraduate student in Dr. Bert Bell-Babaro's office, in his parasitology laboratory, to be exact. I was looking through a scope at the time. Three gentlemen walked into the laboratory, closed the door behind them. There was 2 uniforms and a suit that were present. Both of the uniforms I would make as most probably being United States Navy. My memory of that one event's kind of hazy after seeing all of the suits and uniforms and whatnot. We spoke for a while. They asked me if I was interested in seeing the world and the like. I told them I, in fact, was. We went through several interview processes, not unlike this, and reviewed my background. I went through several background investigations. Finally, starting up 90-91 timeframe, I was cleared for working past groom to the Papoose Mountain facility, that place that doesn't exist, about 90 miles north of here, the nowhere place. That's how I came to work there. My original assignment was at the Groom Lake facility to review histopathology slides. And I went through nearly a year's testing and then was basically let loose for a year, and I heard no contact from them. After that, I was brought back in and shown some higher grade slides of unknown origin. Following that, I was introduced into a working group and subsequently brought into the Papoose facility, the Site 4 facility. We worked for well over a year on slides of unknown origin. After I took a minimum leadership position under several of the other biologists who were already present, most of which are now deceased. You know the names of those individuals. I was then introduced into the level 4-5 facility, and the 4-5 coded for 9. You're again aware. We covered this in ancient history. And so what we did is introduce the new members, myself amongst them, into the clean sphere area, and we were eventually shown the subject for which we were examining the slides. The slides were unusual in that they were in pressurized cells, and they were reviewed by us on a conveyor with a completely automatic microscope. We weren't touching anything. We'd give verbal commands. At the second instance, we were finally allowed to have a VRML, a keyboard, for examining the slides, and I digressed, but then working with the jrod itself in the ambassadorial suite or the clean sphere suite.
Now, was this under this Project Aquarius?
Yes. Initially, I was assigned as a working member of Project Aquarius. Then finally, I was made an assistant working group leader. Then mysteriously, after one meeting with the jrod, I was asked to take the working group leader position. I didn't find out why I was asked to take the working group leader position until, within this last year. I never understood it because Stephen was older than I. He was my senior not only in ability, but in age. And I would have never figured being advanced above an individual like that in ranking within a working group. And in fact, I never considered myself above him. We worked together. The Q94 document that you have in your possession was co-authored. My name went on there as the primary investigator because I was the working group leader. But in fact, he and I were both involved in the authoring of that document.
Okay, now, could you explain briefly what you were briefed on who and or what jrod was?
Initially, I was briefed that jrod was an alien, specifically from the reticulum system, to reticulum 4. I had no idea the truth. Yes, from 2 reticulum 4 now, but I had no idea the truth of how they came to be. As I said to you before, I have never met an alien, but I have met an extraterrestrial. I found out subsequent to interactions with the jrod. And again, they have personal names. The term jrod simply means 15, which was a basing name for where they're located, the number of light years from our location. So they took those names. And they identified through the Sigma protocols, the linguistic protocols, with a rod symbol, which was an inertia symbol, and the letter J. And in fact, that was a combination of Mayan and Egyptian numerology having to do with a rod and a J, meaning 10 and 5 for 15.
15 light years away, is that the least 876?
876 Charlie, from what I've been told. Now, he did not specifically tell me that was the location, but the number 15 was mentioned. They don't call it, apparently, Blease 876, whatever,
How
Charlie.
did jrod get here? I mean, how did he, 15 light years away?
He crashed in 63, from what I understand,
Was that right?
outside of Kingman, Arizona.
Right.
There was a problem involving his physiology and his biophysiological communication with the craft went wrong. And of course, he's ill, as we know, with the MGUS and the paraprotein associated problems. And he crashed.
And how was he? Was he transported immediately from that crash site to the S4 facility? And how is
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know.
You don't know how he came to be at the facility?
I believe he and associates were transferred separately. He to the originally to the Groom Lake facility, and an associate to, I believe, Los Alamos. I have no independent verification of where the associate went, though. All I can say is that he was there at Site 4, right?
Now, you interacted with jrod. Was there a general procedure for this interaction?
Oh, there was not a general procedure. There was a very specific procedure.
Very specific, okay.
After we would be brought in with our helper biologists, there was controlling helper biologists, those in the gallery, and then the introduction specialist, which was myself on a number of occasions. We entered the clean sphere through a large series of protocols involving pressurization and compartmentalization, no pun intended, until finally we were pressurized in fully encapsulated a TEC, a TES, total encapsulated suit for entrance into the clean sphere. Once we were pressurized and entered into the clean sphere, well, I should digress. We had a medical evaluation, all of that first. But they ceased doing that after a couple of medical evaluations. It was more just interested, let's get you in and get the work done. I would enter into the clean sphere, and I was not supposed to communicate with the jrod at all. I was not supposed to know his name. The reality is we were communicating from the time that I entered into the ambassadorial suite external to the clean sphere, talking back and forth freely. I could hear whatever he was projecting at me from thought, and he could very clearly hear what I was thinking. I say hear, meaning perceive. I was supposed to stand over by a hologram projection system, which was run as like a teleprompter system over to my right that would be run inside of the clean sphere glass. Hold my hand up and mimic certain signs. And it became a joke. It really did. It became a joke. Those folks who were watching from the gallery running the show thought that I was standing there and mimicking the signs, and this was the only communication underway.
jrod was retrieved from a crash near Kingman. Was he, at that time, just traveling through space from the staging area, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
He wasn't doing any time traveling, is that?
No, not as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Not as far as he told me, no.
Can you describe jrod to us, what he looked like and how he behaved?
Yes. The gentleman with which I was associated was approximately 3.5 feet tall. He had a dark brown appearance, very ruddy appearance to his skin. He was in a highly pressurized clean sphere. He exuded glycoprotein-like material through pores on his skin, which was associated with the neuritis, the neuropathy that we were dealing.
Did this have an odor to it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I couldn't perceive any odors whatsoever. I was inside my. But I would imagine. But I have no data set to say what it would have smelled like. And in fact, there was nothing I read that indicated whether or not there was an odor.
Correct.
3.5 feet, large head in comparison to torso. So the ratio of the cranial to the torso area would be larger than in what we would call a modern human being. Large, bulbous black eyes. The whites of the eyes had been selected out. So it looked like a large pupil, basically. When you look into his eyes, you feel like you're going to fall into his eyes forever. And I think that probably had something to do with the telepathic nature.
Stop making pricing based on gut feeling. Improve your pricing with Simpson-winning AI platform.
And this was all black in here.
All black. Now you
So
made
that is
pupils. Did they actually have pupils or
like
black?
white.
What?
The pupils were white like
You
that.
saw white in the center?
Yes, like that.
And did the man say those things to you? How did he get that across to you?
Well, he never said anything. It's just that the face is the eyes.
What was the sense you got from those eyes?
He was interested.
Large arms, large length. 4 very thin, sinuous fingers, nails. He was hunched over most of the time, could not support himself fully, given muscular atrophy, and that had to do with the peripheral neuropathy in which he was suffering. So he would grunt and move toward me almost in a flopping fashion. Feet were large in comparison to what we would say our feet would be. He was unclothed 4. Yeah, he was unclothed, which bothered him. He wanted to wear clothing and was refused in every turn. Called himself captive, and justifiably so. His feet were unusual in that the plantar area had a very large knob underneath what we would call our heel. His facial features were grotesque in comparison to what he showed me what normal would be. He was
Normal of his type?
Yes. He was bilaterally symmetrical to the extent that the disease process was not changing his facial features. Nose was recessed, not a nose like we have, but basically two opercula, 2 orifices. An extremely small mouth, a hard palate, no teeth. His musculature, again, it was suffering from the problem at the myoneural junction due to the neuropathy.
Do you have any idea what his chronological age was?
622. They excrete in a manner that we would excrete. Their external genitalia are different than ours. The females have somewhat like vulva, but they have a clasper situation. The male has a male clasper, the female claspers, and if it looks like a disc with rectangular solids that are rotated into position for clasping at the inguinal region. They do have internal fertilization.
Now, this was something you read because you didn't see a female.
No, this is something he showed me of his wife.
Oh. And Charlie.
Yes.
And how was that image presented to you? Did it appear?
I was inside the image.
You were inside the image.
That's what it felt like.
Like virtual reality.
Yes. Everything that he showed me when this was the incident. When he projected it into me, it felt like I was there. My sensations were heightened. Quite extraordinary.
Was there a background perceived? Was she in a domicile of some sort?
Again, excuse the pun, a gray surrounding. Very, very dull, drab surrounding. Almost like a concrete evacuation center. Where you'd have evacuation zones underneath the hotels in case of a mass casualties or a mass disaster, where it was a very clinical environment.
So, were you impressed that he was kind of depressed about his situation?
He was extremely depressed. If we were to term him human, I'm not a psychologist, but I think he would be termed as clinically depressed. He wept, but he didn't weep outside. He wept when he was with me.
Well, could you estimate what his level of intellect was?
Smarter than me. He was smarter than me by a long range.
Did he have a wide range of knowledge?
The mathematics that he showed me blew my mind.
Was that right?
He showed me concurrently not only the equations for the rule of nines, but he also did so diagrammatically, and he did so with three-dimensional, like a VRML system, where I was watching cubes come together. So that if I was not understanding the script, I would understand it as a child learns group theory in mathematics. Highly evolved, highly intellectual, highly repressed emotionally. When I was with him, I felt great happiness to be with him, but I could feel his great sadness, not only because of what he wanted to become, what he knew he was by being present with us, but where he was and how he was being treated. He was not part of the group that has to be catered to involving the T9 treaty that was just signed. He wanted to help. He was willing. When I went in, for God's sakes, I took well over, nearly 300 individualized aspiration samples from his neurological system. He would hold his arm out for me to take them. There was no pain medication. And whenever I would fire the introduction system to remove the sample, it was an aspirative avulsion system, he would cry, and then he would just stand there and look at me.
There was a suction.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I would bring the sample after the initial removal from his tissues into the introduction system, and then approve it and move it from there to one of the helper biologists. Usually it was Robert, outside of the clean sphere, and then he would move it from there to be handled under our normal protocols. It was a level 5 past our the BMBL system. he'd just stand there and take it.
So, do you feel the communication that he established with you when you were in contact with him, could he extend this communication over any distance?
60 feet.
60 feet?
Definitely 60 feet.
Okay.
Because it was 60 feet from the center of the clean sphere to the introduction ramp going down into the ambassadorial suite. So at least 60 feet.
So you don't feel like he's been in communication with you since that time?
No.
Okay.
What was it that you thought you were looking at when you were looking at these slides of material of unknown origin?
Well, we were
prior to meeting you.
we were looking at extremely minute microglial cells. We knew that they were eukaryotic. However, they were unusual in the sense that their cytoplasm and their internal organization, the organelle structures were fused, such as dictyosomes to mitochondria, things like that. And we had no idea what we were looking at.
Tell us a little bit more in detail about the physical aspects of preparing for an entry into the clean sphere.
Fine. Well, we would undergo a medical examination, at least during the early time frame of the introductions, the 92 time frame, 91 to 92, when we were doing introductions. We had regular systematic medicals by a physician. Following that, we would be suited, we would be catheterized, plugged, and suited. Communication apparatus was placed on our heads. We had a cooling system set up. It was, for all intents and purposes, it was a spacesuit. It was a total encapsulated suit. We would be led up the gantry-way. The hoses would be hooked into an interior system inside the doorway, which was exterior to the clean sphere. And it was called the exterior system, in fact. But when we would be let in, the door would be closed, and we would be pressurized inside of the gantry-way. Following that, there was a drum system that was set up. Once there was an equal pressurization between the gantry-way and the clean sphere, we would then be told to proceed forward. I would raise a hand in acknowledgement. We were not supposed to talk at the time at all because nothing verbal around the specimen, around the jrod. Why, I was never told, but we were not supposed to talk around the jrod. I moved the drum system and re-hooked a secondary set of hosing inside the clean sphere, checked the pressurization, and once that was done, the door to the clean sphere would be closed behind me, and I would presume that the pressurization remained the same in the gantry-way. Following that, I would do my business inside of the clean sphere involving contacting the jrod and removing the samples.
And what was the reason you were removing samples?
We were removing samples to attempt a treatment, a full diagnosis and a treatment for a paraprotein-related monoclonal gammopathy of uncertain significance type disorder, which had various attributes to it, among which were a cocaine type presence to the jrod, cocaine syndrome type presence, and certain genetic issues involving chromosome 5 and 17, which led us to Charcot-Marie tooth disorder, and their glycoprotein, their antifreeze glycoprotein problems. They were essentially they were losing heat because of the problems at their axonal ridges. They were not transmitting the energy, something like a dystrophy. And when the action potential goes down a nerve, their action potentials were dying at the synapse. They were also losing energy because there was a demyelination process underway. That demyelination process was, since the Q94 document, was tied to a CMT1A-like problem, the Charcot-Marie tooth problem called PMP22, which is a protein number 22, which and overexpression of that gene causes a greater demyelination. We tied that to the demyelination issue involving the promoters for the PMP22. Those promoters, there's 2 promoters for it, were selectively deselected with the use of TFOs, or triplet-forming oligonucleotides. It's essentially an ssDNA vector expression system that we're using.
Doesn't that interfere in the demyelination process? Okay, isn't that similar to conditions that humans sometimes have, like, what is it, muscular dystrophy?
Well, yeah, except for he wasn't forming plaques.
Okay.
He wasn't forming plaques. He was simply demyelinating, repairing the demyelination area with the immune system. They've got a cell-mediated immune system, humoral system, just like we have. The cells are different. They've got Philippodia, but very strange looking blood-like material. But it's like it. But that's why we use the term analog so much, because it was different.
Can you describe in detail the first time what it was like to meet this being for the first time?
My original feeling was I was looking at a giant insect. It's the best I can just off the cuff. It looked like a giant insect, being dark brown and hunched in a corner, very insectoid in appearance. It almost looked like it had an exoskeleton. I felt afraid inside because I was always told that monsters weren't real. And now I find out they are, but they live in the heart of men. It was fear, excitement, complete astonishment.
I just want to ask you a question about the telepathic communication, the nature of it. What is it actually like to communicate with one of these beings telepathically? What do you hear something in your head? Do you hear images, see images, or?
I could hear my voice. Oh, you can hear yourself think.
So can you look at the
Sorry.
okay.
Habit, looking at the people there. I could hear my voice. However, the cadence, the affect was something that distinguished it other than me. I actually felt non-resident for a moment. It was almost an OBE type feeling. And then I could feel myself pull back and experience the sound. It was physical. It was more real than touching an object. And that's the only real time that I felt anything, more physical than physical. It got to the point where, as I was doing the needle introductions, I could feel what he was feeling. So as I would inject the needle under the integument and find my proper location prior to removing the sample, I could feel the needle entering him.
How successful were you in assisting this being medically?
Temporary assistance, temporary relief of pain, temporary meaning weeks, temporary adjustment of muscle tone, and then flat out nothing. He got worse. The exacerbation got out of control again on him. Since then, there have been, and I'm not certain if he's resident there or not now, there has been a progress, we'll just say progress, involving what I was yammering on earlier about the Charcot-Marie tooth disease, the CMT1A. Their DNA is triplets. And it's not triplets in the way that you would think of a number 3 helix wrapping around the major groove between the 1 and 2 Watson Cricks, the duplex DNA. their DNA is triplex to the extent that there are what we nicknamed hangers. They look like they're rosettes. The DNAs look like rosettes. They're triplets and then they're braided.